The new Model 3 Performance is now officially available, to order at least, which is what I've done. They also made it available in select showrooms for customers to go in and see. People have been allowed in the cars, which means that we're getting pictures and videos of new settings. So that got me thinking, in case my Tesla profile fails and I do have to set up the car, why don't I go ahead and go through all of my must change, or at least what I'm going to change, day one settings. Also, I'm going to have the delivery day checklist that I'm going to be using linked down below. It's going to have you looking at things that you didn't even know existed, and there's even a video that goes along with it just to really ensure that you have a super smooth delivery. If you do decide to pick it up, it does directly support the channel, as it did take me a super long time to put together, and I really do appreciate it. Now, if at any point I'm talking about a setting and you can't find it, you can go into the search right here and type in the setting that I'm talking about, and it'll bring it up. But first up, before we even get started with the settings, is the dock. I'm gonna be customizing the dock. Normally I put my most used things down here, so that would be the camera, which I actually may no longer need down here because the updated 3 has a button on the steering wheel for it. But I have my music, my energy graph, and my dash cam, which I actually recently spoke about. If you have your dash cam on automatic or manual, and in the event that you need to save something really quick, instead of having to push the car icon and then pushing the recording, which would save it, instead, as long as you're in drive and you quickly press that, it'll do the save. It'll act as if you just went in there and pushed that. So also, for anyone that's wondering why my dock is missing a bunch of things, this is something else that I also change. If you go into your music here, and if you can't find this, it's more than likely right here, so just touch that, pull it up, go into your music settings. Here you can customize your EQ and everything. But if you go down to sources, as you can see, I've actually removed sources, which declutters. Yeah, you I don't use half this stuff. So I just I don't use streaming, I don't use karaoke, I don't use TuneIn or Tidal or Spotify. And so now when I go into let's say my music, it also makes them disappear from here as well. So it's just a lot less cluttered. Now, getting into the settings, first up is controls, but this is more so quick controls, because everything that you can do here, you can do elsewhere. It's just, this is what Tesla thinks that you would need in a pinch. But the first actual setting, I guess, would be acceleration and steering mode. Acceleration is, I feel completely personal preference. I've always ran sport. The only time I ever run chill is if the roads are really bad in terms of ice and stuff. Simply because sometimes the car just puts too much power down to get traction. So then I'll swap over to chill. But if you have infants or babies or kids or the ladies in the car and keeps yelling at you for slamming on it at every single stoplight, then maybe you should switch to chill. Also, chill will smooth out the torque curve and should help save on tires. However, I've always ran sport and my tires are doing just fine. Next up is steering mode. And for people that don't know what this means, it just means how much slack is in the wheel, how much force it takes to turn. So example, sport, barely move the wheel and the car is going to move. It's very nimble, it's very responsive. Where comfort, you could wiggle the wheel and you're still just going to keep going straight. So if you're just a highway cruiser, comfort's probably what you want to be. But if you're someone that likes being super nimble, sport is probably where you want to be. So I've always driven this car on sport and sport. Stopping mode, I've talked about this in tons. In fact, this is not even an option anymore for the new Model 3s. And I assume it's going to be that way with the new Model Y. Yeah, just do hold. Apply brakes when regen is limited. That's also something I use. I like it. I think you should use. Charging, I'm just going to make sure that I'm at 80 or below. However, if I was in a base Model 3, then I'd make sure that I was at 100. Besides that, I also set up scheduled charging. I normally just leave my scheduled charging at 12 a.m. because I have a third-party app, Teslafy, that handles all of my charging needs and all of my automatic charging. So it automatically starts at a certain time, stops at a certain time. So in here, I just make sure that this is turned on, because if this isn't turned on and I plug the car in, it'll immediately start charging, and I don't want to plug in during my on-peak time and the car immediately start charging. So this right here just makes sure that the car does not charge when I plug it in. Next up is Autopilot. I'm not going to be discussing full self-driving. I know they dropped the price. No, I still don't think it's worth it. If they dropped EAP by 4,000 to 2,000, then we'd be having a different conversation. Make sure you turn on auto steer. Traffic aware cruise control will speed up and slow down based on traffic around you. But you still need to steer. Auto steer just adds steering on top of it, so now the car really does kind of drive for you. Autopilot activation, if you have full self-driving, then it's automatically going to put you on single pool, and that doesn't really matter because you really don't need anything else. You might as well stay in single pool. But if you don't have full self-driving and you only have autopilot, you should stay with double pool for one reason. changing lanes. When you change lanes with normal autopilot and you break out of autopilot, assuming you have double pull, traffic aware cruise control will stay active. Meaning, let's say you're going 70 miles an hour, you put your blinker on, you go to change lanes, you break out, and then traffic aware cruise control will still be going. So your car doesn't like immediately start braking and regenning because, you know, your foot's not on the accelerator. Like, it'll keep going its same speed. And if something were to happen and someone like merged in front of you at the same time that you're changing lanes, the car would brake for them, right? So the car continues to be aware, but you can change lanes without having to take over the accelerator or essentially do anything besides controlling the steering wheel. And then once you're in your lane, you don't even have to turn your turn signal off, just double pull down again and automatically turn your turn signal off, and then you're good in that lane. Where if you have single pull on and you change lanes with normal autopilot, it'll disable the entire system. And then your car will start hard braking because regen's on, unless your foot's like on the accelerator pushing down at the same time that you break out of autopilot. So just keep double pull on. Next up is set speed. And I know a lot of people don't actually know what this does. If you have it set to current speed and you enable, like, let's say you're going 40 and you enable autopilot, it'll go 40, right? But if you have it set to speed limit and you're doing 40 and a 55 and the car knows it's 55, it'll accelerate you up to 55 or whatever the speed limit is. If you have an offset set, however, then it'll abide by that offset. You can do either fixed or a percentage. I don't recommend doing fixed because you're always in different speed zones. Going 10 over in a 70 isn't really that big of a deal, but going 10 over in a 15 where it's a school zone is a much bigger deal. But if you have it set to something like 7%, so I normally do mine anywhere between 7 to like 11%, it just helps you go better with the flow of traffic because we all know that the flow of traffic is always faster than what the speed limit is. Speed limit warning is another one that I see a lot of people don't know what it does. If you've ever noticed that when you're driving, the little speed limit icon is sometimes darker and then sometimes it's lighter, more than likely that means that you have the display turned on and you have it set to relative and it's just on 0. So whenever you go above the speed limit icon will brighten up. And then when you're going below it or at it, it will darken or it'll dim. You can actually change that. So you can actually have it set to where whenever you go over the speed limit, you can have the car chime at you. This is awful. And I don't know who uses this, but I've seen some people that like, it is really annoying, or at least last time I used it was really annoying. Yeah, I have mine set to display and 0 miles per hour. Forward collision warning early because I want to be alerted as soon as possible. Lane departure avoidance, I want it on assist, so it'll help bring me back in my lane. And then all these down here I have turned on. Traffic light chime used to be a FSD only feature that they brought to every car, thankfully, because I don't know why it was in full self-driving. It made no sense, but it's great. Next up is locks. Just go ahead and get your phone key set up and make sure your keys work. From there, walk away door lock, make sure that's on. Lock confirmation sound, as you can see right now, is grayed out for me because I actually have a custom lock sound within the toy box. Close windows on lock is something that I also have on. And yes, for anyone wondering, the car does sense when it's really like sensitive to, and it'll actually have on screen here, window closing interrupted due to obstacle. Next up, lights. There's not really much in here to talk about except for auto turn signals. I do set that to auto cancel and it's so nice. Thank you, Tesla, for bringing that from the S and X. I do have steering wheel lights on just because I like to see the steering wheel, like the arrows at night. Next up, for the display appearance, I will run auto. Currently I have it in light just for the video. Reduce blue light, I do not turn on because it makes the entire screen look orange. I think it looks awful. Plus, I don't want to be falling asleep behind the wheel, and reducing the amount of blue light actually helps you fall asleep fast, or apparently it does. Automatic blind spot camera is also a must. Scroll wheel function I have set to camera, though I probably will change this just with the new 3 having a dedicated camera button. But there's a lot of different ones you can use, like if you want to be able to immediately change your acceleration mode, or maybe defrost, or open the glove box is probably a good one too. You can change your energy display, though you can also do that up here by just tapping. Most of you all know that. Trips, the only thing I'm going to do is just set the bottom one to lifetime and never reset it. I do have trip planner turned on, so it will automatically route to superchargers. For safety, Sentry mode, I will have the Sentry mode like drive that I use linked down below. It's an SSD. It's great. It's like 1 terabyte. You're literally never going to run out of space. I do have it set to exclude home just because I already have a camera in my garage, so I don't need it recording while I'm at home. Camera based detection I have on. Disable Sentry sounds I have off just because, you know, I want the car to make a sound if Sentry mode goes off. View live cameras via mobile app. That is a premium connectivity only thing, but I also have that turned on. Dash cam I have set to manual, but I actually need to go ahead and change that over to auto because even if you're on auto, you can still manually save clips. I don't ever recommend on honk because, like I've discussed in previous videos, what's the one thing you do when you're about to get in an accident? You're gonna honk, and there is no buffer. There is no like 10 or 15 second buffer after you honk. where it records and then it records like 15 more seconds and then shuts off. No, it stops the second that you honk your horn, and normally you honk your horn, then you get hit. And yeah, so from here, I do have pin to drive and glove box pin. That is something I highly recommend, especially pin to drive. Your phone is so easily snatched. If someone knows you have a Tesla, especially if they know how it works, put the car in drive and just and like you're not catching them. Cabin overheat protection I have turned off simply because the preheat via the Tesla app is too OP. I don't really care if it gets super hot in here during the summer. I also have like little sunshades and stuff that I'll also link down below in case you're interested, that I'll put up during the summer if it starts getting super, super hot. I can hit the precondition in the app while I'm coming out from the grocery store. And by the time I walk across the parking lot to the car has cooled down enough to where it's comfortable on the inside. I mean, that also probably does have to do with the fact that I have white seats, which is another reason to get white seats. But yeah, next up is actually going to be something that I turned on like a few months back and I've never turned off, and I will never turn it off, is Joe mode. I never realized how loud the car's chimes were until I turned on Joe mode. Thank you, Joe. That's pretty much it in terms of like just what I'm going to change day one. However, a few other things that I actually just learned this one, wiper service mode. If you press it, I don't know if you can see, well, you can't see, but the wipers just slid up. I can't tell you how many times I've been washing the car and I try to like get underneath the wipers and I can't do it. And I'm like, I just feel so stupid. Turns out you can just press wiper mode and they pop up a little bit and it allows you to get underneath them and clean them. It's great. And then you just push them again and they go right back down. Also, if you come in here, you can see here when the last time that you had that done. Just make sure you are resetting that every time by going into the wheel and tires. And then, you know, all you got to do is just go here and then swap over to something else, or you can just press reset. That does require your key card and everything to be in the car, or at least you might be able to just use your phone key nowadays. Under software, I do set my update preference to advanced because I do want the latest updates. There is some debate on whether that actually works or not. I don't actually think it works, but it can't hurt. So, and then finally, upgrades, I just personally have turned off. I don't need someone random in my car coming into upgrades and then sliding right and spending $100 on my credit card or something. Besides that, the only other thing that I can think of is I actually do have my trunk height a little bit lower than normal. So you can actually do this before you even leave the delivery center. Just open your trunk. Once it reaches the top, just pull it down to wherever you want it to be at, like if you have a low garage, and then just press and hold the trunk close or open button and it'll save that height. Now every time you open it, it'll open back up to that. But besides that, that's pretty much all of my like must change day one settings. When I get home, of course, I'll connect to my Wi-Fi, which is super easy. You just literally press the Wi-Fi up at the top right, and then you go into Wi-Fi settings, and then you set up all your Wi-Fi stuff. I also am planning on doing a full in-depth walkthrough of the entire UI and just the car in general when I do take delivery of that new Model 3. And by that time, we should have the new spring update, which is a pretty big update coming. It has like an entire top level UI redesign and everything. So make sure you check back on the channel for that. If you are new around here and you want to see more Tesla related stuff in your YouTube feed, then feel free to subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.